So we don't know who did the bombings yet. So that's never stopped right-wingers before. Now, speculation is one thing I think is perfectly normal. I think all of you at home are speculating. It's one thing when you do it. It's another thing when you say in advance, hey, we don't really know, but I'm concerned about this or that. Of course, there are no such qualifications with right-wingers. They know. Steve King says to the National Review Online, some of the speculation that has come out is that, yes, it was a foreign national, and speculating here that it was potentially a person on a student visa. If that's the case, then we need to take a look at the big picture. God damn immigrants! I mean, just a little speculation, but if it is, I'm coming for it. Okay, but hold on, you don't even know who you're coming for yet. But of course, Steve King does not hold on. He's, of course, a Republican from Iowa and one of the most right-wing members of Congress. If we can't background check people that are coming from Saudi Arabia, how do we think we're going to background check the 11 to 20 million people that are here from who knows where? Mexico. So, wait, the Saudi guy didn't do it. We tackled the wrong guy just he was running away from the bomb because it was a bomb, right? But Steve King saw that and he's like, that's it, it's the Saudi, it's all the immigration. And the whole interview was about how we shouldn't do the immigration bill that's in front of Congress now because we detained the wrong guy after the Boston bombing. You following that logic? I'm sorry to use logic in the same paragraph as Steve King because he certainly does not deserve it. But he's not alone. Here they come. First of all, Representative Mike McCall is going to be on with Laura Ingraham. Now, he's actually going to be reasonable here. Let's hear him out.
Yeah, we look at the blood in the streets and this little 8-year-old child, Martin, who was killed as he's running to embrace his father, and to politicize this that early on when there's, we're cleaning the blood off the streets, for God's sakes, is one of the most offensive things I've heard.
So I assume he also means that about his fellow Republican congressman, Steve King, right? Now, look, it's also one thing for us to speculate, whether it's you at home or people giving a warning ahead of time, we're wondering who it might be or something. It's another thing for a congressman to come out because, rightly or wrongly, mainly wrongly, congressmen are taken more seriously. Mike McCall at least said the right thing. Now, why did I play you the McCall thing? Not just to blame Steve King, because he's out with Laura Ingraham, and he said there's blood in the streets, it's reprehensible to politicize it. So what does Laura Ingraham do right afterwards? Watch.
We're talking to Congressman Mike McCall, chairman of the House Committee on Homeland Security, and this, in my mind, raises all sorts of questions. I mean, again, we don't know who did this, motivations, all of that. But it is interesting that at this moment, we only have 2 minutes, by the way, at this moment we are considering legalizing or giving regularized status to millions of people. Pretty much none of them have gone through any rigorous background checks to have a temporary status in the United States. We can't stop every attack, but my goodness, if we had borders that were shut down and we actually had a proper screening process, maybe we could stop some of them.
I mean, you wouldn't want to politicize it. The goddamn immigrants. But you don't even know it was immigrants. You're not even close to knowing, right? It doesn't matter. Let's just use it for, I don't know, what's nearby that we don't like. Oh, the immigration bill's coming up? Goddamn immigrants. Kill the bill, okay? No, you wouldn't want to politicize. And if it's right-wingers, should we have done background checks on them? How dare you? Remember, Department of Homeland Security comes out and says, watch out for the extremist right-wingers. They're like, how could you do this? Laura Ingraham, Rush Limbaugh, all of them scream bloody murder over it. Now all of a sudden you're in favor of doing background checks? How about people with guns who are much more likely to commit violence, doing background checks on them? They already have a weapon. No. Let's do background checks on immigrants that have absolutely nothing to do with this story. Classy as always. Now, look, here's a funny mashup. We've got Jake Tapper telling you that it's not the Saudi guy, and then listen to Steve King. Now, they're from two different places, but it's just funny that we put them together. Let's watch.
A senior U.S. official tells our Barbara Starr at the Pentagon that no foreign connection or link to al-Qaeda has been found in this attack, at least not yet.
What we have learned is that they haven't been able to distinguish whether it's an international terrorist or a domestic terrorist.
I know that the pressure cooker was in Inspire magazine, which is the al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula internet magazine. which is propagated here in the United States. So again, it does have Islamist links, but again, it could be used also by some other group, like a white supremacist group.
Islamist links. Did you understand that? The bomb was apparently in some sort of pressure cooker. And Steve King takes it, oh, that was in an Al-Qaeda magazine, obviously. Now, why are they bothering to do this? Because if it turns out they're wrong, isn't it kind of embarrassing? No, they're doing it because they want to frame people's way of thinking about it. Now, if later it turns out to be something else, it's okay. Muslim terrorist, Muslim bomb, Muslim. What? I didn't say anything. What do you mean? What do you mean? Al-Qaeda magazine. Because terrorism must equal Muslim, and that's what they try to do. And the government does this kind of propaganda all the time. Now, in a different context, for example, Osama bin Laden, when he was first killed, they say, oh, he reached for the gun and he was right behind his wife and he hid behind her like a coward. Later, they're like, yeah, none of that was true. There was no gun near him and he didn't hide behind any woman. But anyway, most of the world thinks that because that's the first thing they heard, and they didn't hear our correction 2 weeks later, right? So here they are going, immigrants, Muslims! Okay, later, oh, it's somebody else, who cares? Some people will think that for the rest of the time. All right, now, who's going to outdo all of them? Well, of course, Glenn Beck.
Somebody said they're going to make this look like it's, some American citizen that's all hacked off of the government. And I said, no American citizen blows up random people. That's a Middle Eastern scene. That's not an American scene. When our crazies go off, they target the government, not streets that are crowded with people. How does the president, I guess you're probably the wrong person to ask, but how does the president, he has said that there's no such thing as terrorism. We're not fighting terror. He's saying that we don't, there's no such thing as Al-Qaeda. All of this bullcrap. Christians are on the watch list more than the Muslim Brotherhood. How does this government that has been in denial spin this, do you suppose?
That was so awesome. I had to write down all the incredibly stupid things he said. Number one, no. The right-wingers in this country that do the bombings, extremists, they'd never target civilians. Except for Oklahoma City. Yeah, it was a government building, but I believe there were civilians inside of it and outside of it, and over 160 people died, and most of them were civilians. Really, Americans don't do this. Our extremists don't do this. On which planet? I mean, come on, man. He's saying, look, even if it's a crazy right-winger extremist or whatever kind of extremist that's from America, no, it doesn't count. It doesn't count. It doesn't count. No. Our guys would never do. Our terrorists are not as bad as their terrorists. Remember, the worst terrorist in the world is a Muslim. I mean, terrorism equals Muslim, right? He says, oh, Obama said there is no such thing as terrorism. He never said that. That's totally made up. What he's referring to is, Obama said, we're not going to refer to it as the global war on terror because it is different acts from different places. Sometimes it's an attack that's ordered from Yemen. Sometimes it's an attack ordered from Pakistan or Afghanistan. And by the way, sometimes it's homegrown terrorism that has nothing to do with any of that. So how in the world do you fight a right-wing terror attack here in the U.S. the same as you would fight an attack in Yemen? That doesn't make any sense. Because there is no global war on terror. Timothy McVeigh was not working with Al-Qaeda, you schmuck. And then he adds, President Obama says there is no Al-Qaeda. 100% lie. President Obama never said that. Glenn Beck just made that up. Oh, yeah, he pretends there's no Al-Qaeda. Then he says, can you believe they say the terrorist acts are done more by Christians than by people from the Muslim Brotherhood? But that's literally true. If you look at a list of the terrorist acts, unfortunately, they're more domestic, and they happen to be Christians. It doesn't mean that it's Christianity's fault. We're not as dumb as the right-wingers who say, oh, if a Muslim did it, it must be all Muslims' fault. It's not like a Christian does a terrorist attack, we say, oh, it must be all Christians. We're not as dumb as you are, Glenn Beck. And Muslim Brotherhood is not the same as Al-Qaeda. It's a totally different group. They won a democratic election in Egypt. I wish they hadn't, but they did. See, those are two different things. But the conservatives see it in a black and white world. Who's at fault? Immigrants, Muslims, terrorists. Who's not at fault? Not us, not us. Even if we killed everybody, well, we didn't mean to kill civilians because we're good guy American terrorists. Why in the world would you defend those people? Whoever did it, why would you say it's any different? No, but it doesn't matter because Glenn Beck doesn't have the facts, but he's already decided it must be the Muslims.